Assessment Task 1 Mathematics Learning Activity by Alana Moon. How to complete this activity. The activity I've chosen to create for this assignment is a probability activity related to the likelihood of weather-related events occurring for Year 4 students. For this activity, students will have a discussion about what the terms certain, even chance, and impossible mean. The teacher will then read the book, The All About Weather book by Huda Haraji. While reading this book, the teacher will ask students questions that will enable them to make connections in regards to the weather, clothes, and activities characters are experiencing. Examples of questions the teacher will ask is, why is the character wearing those clothes? In what type of weather would you complete this activity? And how can you tell that this page is talking about summer? After reading the book, the teacher will introduce the worksheet to the students. He or she will explain to the students that they are going to order the likelihood of weather, weather-related clothing, and weather-related events occurring or being needed with current weather conditions. The teacher will remind students to use observations from the book they read and observations from around the school to assist them in making their judgments. Students will do so by cutting and pasting the images and words in order of their likelihood of occurring from impossible to certain onto the scale. Students will also have to fill in missing possibility terms onto the scale. After completing the worksheet, the teacher will correct each of them and have a discussion regarding misconceptions students had that led them to making the wrong decision. The purpose of this activity is for students to gain a clear understanding of the main terms used in probability, being certain, even chance, and impossible, before introducing more difficult terms such as more certain, more likely, and possible. It is also important for students to grasp other fundamental concepts of possibility, such as that each end of the scale links to an increased or decreased likelihood of an event occurring. Through this activity, it is also hoped that students can use connections from different resources, such as the book and observations from their surroundings, to make a more accurate judgment. This would be the type of activity teachers would use at the start of the unit to introduce probability. This activity connects to the Victorian curriculum through the topic Statistics and Probabilities and the subtopic Chance, where students are learning to describe possible everyday events and order their chances of occurring. It also connects to another chance-related standard, being students can identify events where the chance of one will not be affected by the occurrence of another. As well as connecting to mathematics, this activity connects to English through making connections with text and geography through looking at different climates. Lastly, this activity links to one of the general capabilities being critical and creative thinking. It does so by getting students to use reliable information and observations to make the most accurate judgment they can on different weather-related events occurring. Resources needed for this activity. To complete this activity that I've designed, you will need a few resources at hand. The first being the book, The All About Weather book by Huda Haraji. During my activity, this book will be read to the students so they can understand and make connections between the different weather conditions, clothes, and activities worn by the characters in the book. Students will then use this information gathered from the book to make comparison and analyse the current weather, clothes, and activities that they see at this time of the year where they live. I've chosen to incorporate a storybook into my lesson to allow students to make a more accurate comparison and analysis. This is because the book not only provides a written description of the different weather conditions, clothes, and activities, it also provides visuals that they can use to examine the current environment they are in. For example, students will see in the book that to fly a kite there needs to be wind so the kite will stay in the air. Students can simply look outside the classroom to see if there is wind to help decipher the suitability of flying a kite with the current weather conditions. The benefits of visuals when teaching probability is noted in the article Visualizing Uncertainties About the Future. They detailed how visuals aid in providing a more accurate representation of the probability scenario at hand and are more suitable to individuals with a lower level of numeracy skills and knowledge. Hence why this is suitable for Year 4 students who are being introduced to the topic of probability. The use of storybooks also appears through a range of different learning types that can be found within the classroom, such as visual spatial through the pictures in the book and worksheet, kinesthetic through the cut and paste worksheet, oral through reading the book and providing spoken instructions, to just name a few. The learning success provided to students by teachers personalising their learning was acknowledged by Yang and Huang, who found that students who had content presented in their preferred learning style performed better than those who had content presented in basic written form. The other resources you will need to complete this activity is the two worksheets I have designed, being the Ordering Weather-Related Events worksheet and the Scale worksheet. The Ordering Weather-Related Events worksheet provides the students with 3 different questions linked to the categories of weather, clothes, And activities, asking students to order options on the basis of them occurring or needing items with consideration of the current weather at the school. The scale worksheet is where students will place the items from the scenario in order of the likelihood of them occurring. Students will also have to identify the 3 different missing probability terms: impossible, even chance, and certain. To a relevant learning framework. The activity that I have created connects to a relevant learning framework created by Joe Bowler called Mathematical Mindset. The framework's overall goal is to provide teachers with 5 practices that they can use to ensure students aspire and to provide with the resources to continually grow while learning in mathematics. In particular, I focused on creating an activity that demonstrated the expanded form of the first principle found under the Practice for Connections Collaboration, being mathematical connections. This practice is used within my lesson by providing students with visuals that enable them to have a stronger understanding of the representations and ideas associated with weather, and then using this knowledge to make comparisons by analysing it against observations of the weather, clothes, and activities that are occurring in their immediate environment, such as whether students are wearing shorts or tracksuit pants at school, and if it's a wet day timetable. By doing so, students will be able to make a more accurate judgment of the likelihood for each of these scenarios occurring. It also connects to another principle, assessment, through the expanded form of nature of feedback. This is evident as the teacher not only corrects each worksheet but discusses the misconceptions that students have from the worksheet at the end of the lesson. Addressing misconceptions and differentiation. As acknowledged in the 5th edition of the book Teaching Primary Mathematics, one misconception students may have while learning about probability is that students may allow perceived ideas about probability to influence possible outcomes. Essentially meaning students may let their prior knowledge on probability or weather-related events lead them to making an incorrect judgment. To address this during my lesson, I will provide a clear definition of what each of the probability-related terms are. By doing so, students will have the same correct idea about what each term means. I will also discuss with students what is typical weather they will see in the season and place that they live in. Another misconception related to probability that was identified in the book Exploring Probability in School was that there was a possibility that all outcomes could occur. In reference to this activity, a lot of students may have the misconception that because it does not snow in nearly all of Australia and not in recent times where they go to school, that it is impossible for it to snow. To address this misconception, the teacher will need to clarify how even though it may be highly unlikely that snow would occur, that there is a small possibility preventing this weather from being categorized as impossible. To differentiate this activity for students who need their knowledge to be extended, the teacher could get students to apply their understanding on more probability terms such as more certain, less likely, and possible. The teacher could incorporate this into the activity by getting students to fill these terms onto the scale and by incorporating more events that connect to each of those likelihoods. To differentiate this activity for EAL students and students with dyslexia who understand visuals better than words, the teacher could make sure there is a picture for all of the activities on the worksheet rather than just for the first category of events.